Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Matt Kuda. I'm glad that you have come here to check out what we're going to talk about today, which is the Sony FE 1.4x Teleconverter. And I just want to say to start out with, in the past, I have not been a huge teleconverter type guy. Many times they were not high quality. Many times they were poor image quality. Even the ones that cost $200, $300, $400 back in the 80s and 90s were terrible quality. But now we're truly seeing some high quality teleconverters. Before, you could get a good teleconverter, but it was usually from Canon, who had the best in the business. But now we have the Sony teleconverter, and this video is going to go into details about the specifications. We're going to look at photographs that I made with the teleconverter, and then my conclusions and what I think about it. Okay, so the teleconverter. It comes in this nice orange box right here, and I don't know if you can see that good or not. Let's get some focus on that if I can here. Oh, you're not going to focus on me because you're focusing on my eyes. Well, isn't that nice? There you go. So it comes in that nice orange box, typical Sony box. And then it comes in this zipper case here. And let's get that out of there. And there's a cover on it. And this is designed to fit on the 200 to 600. Any of the large telephoto lenses, the 2 to 600, 100 to 400, the 400 f4, or is it 500 f4? Excuse me. And the truth of the matter is, this little guy is not that heavy. It has a nice construction. It has I don't know what I would call it. It could be plastic. It feels maybe that it is. Maybe got a plastic cover over maybe some kind of metal alloy underneath it. But this thing is very high quality, and I'll say that right off the bat here. It is of course made for the Sony E-mount. It is a 1.4x teleconverter, which means that you multiply your focal length times 1.4, and that gives you the effective focal length of your lens. It does lose one stop of light when you're photographing with this, and that's an important concept to remember. If I'm shooting, for example, with a 200 to 600, that would take it down to an f9, from f6.3 to f9. So if you're shooting with a 5.6, it's going to make it an f8. If you're shooting with an f4, it's going to make it a 5.6 effectively. That's the light loss that you're going to get. It's not so much of a big deal when you're talking about an f4 lens. You're only losing one stop to go to 5.6. But when you're talking about a 2 to 600 with the f6.3 on the long end, going to f9 can be a problem. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. It does have full communication, of course, between the lens and the camera. It maintains metering and OSS capabilities. So before I continue, I wanted to talk about what is a teleconverter. You may not even know what a teleconverter is. A teleconverter is simply an additional lens that allows for magnification of an image coming through your primary lens. It's placed on the lens mount and fits between the body and the camera. Okay, so it's going to attach. I've got my A7R3 here, and if I can find that, and then there we go. So it's going to fit on your body like that, and then your lens is going to go like that, right? So it provides magnification. You can think of it really as a magnifier. That may not technically be correct. There probably is some other fancy schmancy way to say that, but I will just say that that's how I think of it, as a magnifier. And you can think of it kind of like a magnifying glass, except for lenses. And it's extremely high quality. So it allows us to get closer to our subject. if I had a full frame camera and I mount this on my 200 to 600, for example, effectively I go up to, on the long end, from 600 to 840 millimeters. That's a significant gain in focal length. Now, if you're talking about an APS-C, you know, then you're going from a 300 millimeter to a 630, and then at 600 millimeter, you're talking about going from 600 to 1260. Also, if you use your Sony camera's APS-C feature, also you get up to that 1200 millimeter focal length. That makes it very nice. So you may be thinking, okay, great, Matt. So what's the catch? The catch is the one stop of light, and the catch is it doesn't work good with this camera. This is the Sony a7R III, which is getting a little long in the tooth, but they're still making the A version of this camera, and I don't recommend it with this camera. You can still use it. The autofocus is very jittery. You can certainly use it with manual focus. It's not a problem. But I would certainly recommend it more with the Sony A9, the A9 II. You could use it with the a7R IV. You could use it with the the a7R V that's coming out. Check out the video on that. And I think it's worth adding to your kit. But if all you had was the a7R III, I don't know if I would add it to the kit unless it came with it in some deal I got on eBay or something like that. It's just not made to go with that camera, and I highly would discourage you from doing that. What I do encourage you to do is check out the prices on a used Sony A9 right now. You combine the 200 to 600 with this, and you have got an amazing focal length, amazing tracking capability. And we're going to see those pictures here in a little bit. So going back to the catches, what are the cons? Slight increase in weight from on the 200 to 600. It now weighs 4.7 pounds, for example. Extra component to add and remove during a shoot. You know, that's an issue, right? If you're in a situation where you're shooting heavily and you're running and gunning and all this kind of thing, having to stop and take the teleconverter off to get a subject that's closer now to you is problematic. You might miss some shots and so forth, so you've got that. Slight image degradation difference. The way I like to think of it is if you're familiar with the Sigma 150 to 600, the 200 to 600 Sony with this mounted is about the equivalent of the image quality of that lens with this mounted, with no teleconverter. So in other words, the 200 to 600 with this mounted is equal to the 150 to 600 Sigma without a teleconverter. That's pretty impressive sharpness, I think. And maybe even better results are possible. I did not test this with the 500 f4 or anything like that. I just stuck with my gear, and I was very impressed. So I guess right now is a good time to just go ahead and take a look at the photographs that I made with the Sony A9, the 200 to 600, and the 1.4x teleconverter combined. Okay, let's talk about these images. And the first image here, we have a barred owl. When I was out photographing, doing a photo walk through a local nature trail, and I came across this beautiful barred owl juvenile. And let's just say, had I not had this little guy with me, I would not have been able to get this shot. He was distant enough where I needed it, and this was still the best framing I could get, even with a little bit of a crop. So this was shot at f9, f9 of course, because we've got the teleconverter. 840 millimeters because of the teleconverter. It goes from 600 to 840. And 1/250th of a second, it's getting down there lower. I had to use image stabilization and just fire away and hope for the best. And that's an ISO 6400, which is not a problem for the Sony A9. The next image. This is an image I took a little bit later that same day, or that morning, I should say. Actually, a little bit earlier that same morning. This is a shot of a mockingbird that was taken at sun, kind of sunrise-ish here, I did hype up the yellow a little bit on here so it brought out the sunrise more. And it's a silhouette. I love taking silhouettes, and this is with the 1.4x Teleconverter. It did a fabulous job. Focus is tack sharp on both the owl and the mockingbird. Had no problems whatsoever. This was f9, of course, 840 millimeters. 1/1600th of a second here at ISO 1600. Why? Because I'm not in the woods. I'm out, in a marshy area where there's plenty of light. And I'm doing the silhouette. The next image. All right, in the backyard now. We've got, our favorite subject, right? The gray squirrel. And with this shot, I was able to certainly zoom in close with the 1.4x Teleconverter. And that's at 1/640th of a second at ISO 4000. And I thought it did a great job. I had to sharpen a little bit in post, but I thought it did a perfect job, a fine job. I would put this into any magazine. I could blow this up to ridiculous amounts. It just did an awesome job. I've taken a lot of other photographs with this combination since those photographs were made. And I can just tell you that it is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Now, the trick is to learn when to use it and when not to use it, because there are times where it makes no sense. If you are in the woods and it's very dark, you need all the light gathering you can get. And sometimes you need to sacrifice putting on that teleconverter just to get better light gathering. And so you may find that you need to do that. All in all, I think it's a wise decision, a wise choice in conclusion. I've had no problems with it. I will continue to use this, and oftentimes I leave it mounted to my 200 to 600 just to have it ready to go at a moment's notice when I'm out and about. And I recommend doing something similar. But bear in mind, you need to have a plan in your mind for getting that teleconverter off and going back to that 600 millimeter or 400, whatever you're using. So anyway, that's about it for this review. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll go out there and pick up one of these beauties for around $500. You can't go wrong. Thanks for watching. Make it a great day and get out there and enjoy nature. Bye-bye.